Well, hello, Council Watch viewers. It's been a while. Now, this is an important one, hence me coming out of retirement to do it. It's actually, in part, a video I put on my own Rachel Matthews UK YouTube channel last night, but, that's a tiny channel, and this video definitely needs a much wider audience, so I'd really appreciate it if you could share it. But also, I want to add a few quite important things to it, so I'll start out with the bit that went out yesterday, and then I shall interject every now and then. BRITCARD. There's so much focus on that, and everyone's saying, no, I'm not going to have a digital ID. We know what you're trying to do. But is that lovely BRITCARD just a red herring? I've come to the conclusion, thanks to the work of Clare Harrison, and you can find out everything she has to say on her Substack called Conscientious Currency, and I really strongly recommend you go over there and read it, especially if you're living in the UK. Now, she talks about Gov UK One login. I had never heard of that until she mentioned it in her Substack. And what that basically is the digital ID infrastructure, but it's being rolled out piecemeal. And all this information, currently, if you're on benefits, you'll be using the gov.uk login system. It's going to be tied in bit by bit with everything. And the company directors thing will just be another thing that's added into it. So I'm just going to read you a very tiny piece from her Substack. Right, she says, I'm going to call it now. We are already in a psychological operation as regards the digital BRITCARD announcement, whilst the actual architecture for digital ID is already in place and people are opting in without even realising it, the backdoor dynamic. The BRITCARD announcement dropped in late September 2025 as a bold, mandatory work check scheme to secure borders. This has grabbed the headlines and sparked a petition, which now has over 3 million signatures. However, I want to somewhat controversially say that this is arguably a distraction from the quieter, more insidious integrations happening via legislation like the Data Use and Access Act 2025, which got royal assent in June, and the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill still progressing through Parliament. These both embed digital ID elements into everyday systems, gov.uk One login for pensions and services, gov.uk Wallet for document storage, NHS app expansions for health data, and mandatory unique child identifiers in education and social care. In addition, identity proofs are soon to be required for company directors, established under earlier legislation, with the identity verification process to become legally mandated from November the 18th, 2025, all without a big digital ID card fanfare. In other words, people are signing up piecemeal for convenience, and suddenly opting out will become impossible. Please read the entire article, which I will link to in the comments below, or watch the video that she has done talking you through this. As she points out, this is the backdoor effect. BRITCARD is pitched as the obvious threat to rally against, distracting from how One Login Wallet, NHS app, etc. already verifies 90% of adults via smartphones. Now, she's been chatting with me about this because I wasn't sure what to do. And she has pointed out that you can go through and avoid the Login One system by getting an accredited person to verify who you are, like your accountant or solicitor. So technically, that keeps you out of the Login One system. But as she points out, all roads lead to one login, hence company directors are the first group they're going after, and if directors all acquiesce, they will come for sole traders and the rest of us, and eventually you will need one login to work, access your bank, social media, travel, etc. The possibilities are endless. One login is mandatory from 2027 to access all government services. If we don't stop this now, everyone will be affected. 11 million people have already signed up to One Login, and I don't think they have any idea what the system is and does. One Login is digital ID. I can't say it any simpler than that. It might not have reached its full draconian potential yet, enslaving all citizens, but it will be used to do so for all. And that is what is happening right now, before everyone's eyes. So whilst the ACSP route is slightly better, that's when you get your accountant to verify who you are, for those that don't want to use one login. But even with that, your name, address, and date of birth are going to be held as attributes to be shared. That's because those details will link to your bank account and then your social media and then your purchases. That's what the digital framework attributes trust stuff does. And we know they will then just switch us off. It's already happened in Vietnam. It's been very helpful discussing this with her, because it's very easy to think like, oh, they know who I am. It's not going to hurt if I just, do this verification, especially if it's done through the accountant. I'm not really signing up for digital ID. But discussing this with her in depth is really made me see, oh yeah, we have to draw the line in the sand right now and say no. So I have also decided that I am going to not verify my company. I have instructed my accountant not to do it on my behalf. And I am willing to have them disqualify me as a director and shut down my company if that is what is required. But it's also made me look at it like, do I actually need a limited company? I'm not sure that I do now. I'm not employing people. I mean, my business has got considerably tinier since I've been concentrating on things like Council Watch and writing books and things. So I don't know that I actually need a limited company. I'm paying corporation tax, I'm paying for the accountant. So I do appreciate that there's a lot of people that will not be able to do this and shut their business down. It's just not viable. They need a limited company. And therefore, they're in a very difficult place. So if you do know any company directors in the UK, do please let them know that even if they go through the verification process with their accountant at the post office or the solicitor, whatever way they do it, they are still tippy-toeing into this digital ID control system. And, I don't know for sure that I'm going to close my company down. I am just considering it at this moment in time. Yeah, I'm also looking at the option is, could I sell my courses through somebody else's limited company? Because I know people who are going to have to get themselves verified eventually. So that's another avenue. I think the key thing is for us to not all just roll over and accept whatever the government dishes out, to at least put some pushback and hold out for as long as physically possible. And that may well be something, the best that we can do is hold out as long as possible. Although there's an awful lot of people thumping their chests going, this is my hill, I'm not going to have a digital ID. The reality is, few people are actually willing to starve. If you haven't got a bank account, etc., and you cannot buy food, how long is it going to be before you acquiesce and give them whatever details they ask for? And I've done enough cleanses like the Master Cleanse, which is 10 days of lemon water, to know how uncomfortable it is to go without food for any length of time. And I know I can do 10 days, but that's kind of my limit. So, I've been having these conversations with myself, trying to find out, where is my breaking point? Because I think it's important to know it so that you can, one, plan for it, and two, try and mitigate it. So if all government services by 2027 will be going through Gov1 login, that's going to include the land registry. So within 2 years' time, you will not be able to buy or sell a property unless you are in that system. Presumably, DVLA and driving licenses will be going through that system. Now, I've looked at mine. I've got another 7 years before it runs out. Am I willing to not be able to drive in 7 years' time? Yeah, actually, I think I am. But it all depends on what my family's doing. At the moment, I'm constantly ferrying my parents to medical appointments. I need a car. Now, everything here is within walking distance, except my parents. So it's going to make life very difficult, very, very inconvenient. At what point am I willing to sell my soul for security and convenience? That's kind of where it comes down to, because this system, once it's got us, it's got us. So it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. It's uncomfortable watching my mind trying to squirm out of taking a stand because it's going to be inconvenient and hard. But my core knows I must resist for as long as physically possible, and if possible, completely. So I'm ignoring that little yellow streak that's desperate not to have to fight this battle, but fight it we must. Actually, when I was chatting with Claire, she gave a very good analogy. So she puts it through the lens of the mRNA jabs, that if they were saying she couldn't have her company unless she had one of those jabs, would she tell them where to go? And I've started doing that with like the driving. So because once you're in this digital control system, they could easily roll out any form of jab and say you have to have this to be in this system. So it's actually a very good filter to put it through. And by putting it through this filter, you get a very honest answer as to what you should be doing. Might not be an answer you like, because the way modern life is set up, unless we've got land, unless we've got a community, they have pretty much got us. And we've got, what, a year, 18 months to get land, get out the system, and get going, get our communities built, and get our ducks lined up in a row. I don't even know where my ducks are. I haven't even seen them for goodness knows how long, let alone getting them in a row. I don't know what's possible, but I'm going to try my best to stay out of that system, especially when it will have all your personal info in a system that has failed the security standards. Even if you're not a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, that's a good enough reason not to want your data in that system. So I'm thinking of actually doing a social experiment where the new course that I'm in the process of writing, which is all about how to create a medicine cabinet that will get you through a lot more emergencies than just a cut finger or something, and especially if we run out of drugs, our supply chain is particularly vulnerable on this tiny little island of ours. So it's to show people how to be prepared and how to use them. So I'm thinking of actually conducting a social experiment to see if I give this course, which would be a very valuable course, if I give that away for free, would people actually donate? And it doesn't have to be money. Someone might send me, I don't know, a month's supply of eggs or something. Is it possible for us to find ways to support one another, because we've all got skills and businesses and services that we all need? Can we do these kind of swapsy stuff? Now, I know there is tax on bartering and whatnot, but I'm sure there should be a way of, if there was a nice big community that we all do stuff for one another and it all kind of works out. Maybe it's not a direct bartering, like person A does something for person B, yeah, and gets something from person C, but person B gives person C. I'm getting confused with my persons now, but anyway, you see what I mean? It's kind of just community helping one another. So we feed and clothe one another and we do whatever needs to be done. With a big enough community, that could work. So you can't tax, well, they probably find a way, but at the moment, I don't think you can tax community, people just helping one another without expecting anything in return. So is that a system that we should be creating right now? So I don't know. So I'm going to conduct this social experiment and see what happens. Instead of paying out money for advertising, I will ask people that have downloaded this very valuable information for free, could you tell 10 people about this? And if one or two of them does some donations, actually that probably would be enough to keep me clothed and fed and a roof over my head. Who knows? It doesn't necessarily have to be a limited company. And especially as I'm giving stuff away, I need to look into, does that make you liable still? That's the whole point of having a limited company, is that it limits your liability. If some so-and-so does decide to sue you, which in this very litigious world seems sensible. But if you're giving stuff away with the disclaimer that, you use this information at your own risk, does one actually need a limited company? I don't know. So anyway, my own feeling is, let's hold out as long as physically possible. Let's not make it easy. Let's not just roll over and give them our details and see what happens. You never know. A year from now, the world could be such a different place. We don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to use this to buy myself some time and really think about what I do. And I know it's going to be highly, highly inconvenient, But if we leave taking a stand too long, it will become impossible. So I'd rather go with inconvenient than impossible. Well, this episode has been an absolute joy, hasn't it? But so we don't leave it on a completely depressing note, I do have some good news. And that is, I've got my own brand new radio show on the new radio station that's been put together by the Lightpaper team called Clare FM. And I'll be on this evening from 7 till 8 pm. Because it's only just started and they're still gathering the various hosts, I'll be on constant replay between 7 and 8 every day. But eventually it'll be down to just one a week. And I don't know which day will be my day. Hopefully a Sunday, because I think it's more of a Sunday kind of feel to the show. But anyway, I hope to see you over at Clare FM. So until next time, take good care.